I know everybody knows about the upcoming election and how important it is to vote. We've talked about voting in the past. I just want to encourage you to do everything to make sure you are ready to vote on November 5th, or by absentee ballot, or voting early. I just want to equip you to do all those things and tell you what the deadlines are coming up. This is really about registering to vote and making sure that you are eligible to vote in the upcoming election. And election day again is November 5th. I'll also give you some information about how to contact the Board of Elections if you have questions. Sometimes the best thing is to go straight to the authorities on that. So these are your important dates to remember. Saturday, October 26th is when your registration to vote must be received by the Board of Elections. And that's important. So if you do it online, that means the last day you can do it online is the 26th. If you do it by mail, you have to make sure that your registration is going to be in the Board of Elections hands by October 26th, not postmarked by October 26th. So do it early. Don't wait. Don't even go up against that deadline. Do it as quickly as you can. Good to just get that done now and you know you're registered and ready to go. Saturday, October 26th, so that same day, is going to be early voting. It makes it easier to find a good time to go and vote. Keep in mind that your early voting polling site may be different than your day of polling site. We'll talk about that a little bit too, but I do really encourage you to take advantage of early voting, especially if you want to skip the longer lines that will probably happen on election day. It's a big election. There's going to be a lot of people going out to vote, hopefully. And then Tuesday, November 5th is election day. So that's the day that you can vote in person if you did not do early voting. So quick run through of who's eligible to register. If you are registered to vote, please do share this information with your family and friends. We want to make sure that everybody who is eligible to vote is registered, especially younger people who may not have registered, they're 18 or they haven't voted in another election. Everybody though, really. So please do share this information with people who are eligible to register but may not have registered already. In New York City, you must meet the following requirements to be eligible to register to vote. You need to be a citizen of the United States. You need to have been a New York City resident for the last 30 days. So this is specific to the city. This is if you are registering in the city, you need to have lived here for at least 30 days. You need to be 18 years old on or before election day. You'll see at the bottom, though, there's a note. If you have someone in your life who is 16 or 17, they can actually fill out that same registration form and just check off that they're pre-registering. And what that means is when they turn 18, they will be automatically registered to vote. So they fill out all the information just like they're doing a regular registration, but they check off the pre-register. And then when they turn 18, they are good to go. So that's pretty cool. A couple other little things. You can't be in prison for a felony conviction. You can't be a judge mentally incompetent by a court. And you can't claim the right to vote elsewhere. If you're registered, you have to only be registered in New York City. If you've been registered somewhere else, once you register in New York City, that's where you vote. So let's go through the steps for how to register. Some of you may have registered online through the DMV or actually when you were at the DMV. One of the things that is a little difficult about that is that you have to have some sort of ID, even if it's just a non-driver identification card. New York City has actually made this new website where you can do it just with the last 4 digits of your social security number. You can also do it with your DMV card, but it gives you another option if you don't have identification from the DMV. Again, all of those categories apply for eligibility, so you do need to be a citizen, you do need to be 18, and they will tell you all of that information to register down here. It's going to tell you what the qualifications are to register if you need to see that again. So this is the website you're going to go to. So it's vote.nyc/page/register. I want to note too that you can translate. So this can translate into, I think, as many languages as Google Translate will do. So please do translate it into the language that is most helpful for you. So I just want to show you all the information you're going to need to have to register online. Okay, so they'll ask you, do you reside in New York City? Yes. Do you have a valid New York State driver's license, permanent or non-driver ID? If you do, you can say yes. If not, that's fine too. Again, you can use your social security number. And then, are you a citizen of the United States? Okay, so that's the qualifications. If you meet all of those, you're going to hit next. And then you're going to enter your personal information, first name, last name, date of birth. Some of this stuff is optional. And then either your DMV number or the last 4 of your social security number. And then hit next. Then they're going to need to know your address. So your house number. So you put the number in first, street name, apartment, the borough, and then your zip code. And then if you receive mail at a different place, they'll send you mail about the upcoming election and things like that. If your mailing address is actually different, go ahead and hit this button and put that in there so they can get in contact with you by mail. But your polling site will be based on where you live, where you reside. Okay, the next is voting information. So this seems kind of funny. It says, have you voted before? This is a registration form, so it kind of seems like you wouldn't have if you were using this. But this is the same form you can use if your address has changed or if you want to switch or or enroll for the first time in a political party. So even if you have registered before, this is a place where you can do that. So if you say, yes, I voted before, they may ask you what was the address that you voted at in the past. And so they'll switch your registration to the address that you're at now. And that'll mean that your polling place will be updated and all of that. You can register for a political party, but you don't have to register for a political party. The point of registering for a political party is that you can vote in that party's primary. So when they're picking the candidate for the general election, you have a say in who that candidate's going to be. In New York State, you have to be enrolled in a party in order to participate in those primary elections. So that's the benefit of doing that. You certainly don't have to, but if you want to help make those decisions about who the candidate is going to be for a particular party, you want to enroll in a political party. It also doesn't mean that you have to always vote for that political party. It's just about being able to vote in the primary. So make that choice. And then it's going to ask you to sign. If you're on your phone, you can use your finger, just like the little things at the store. If you're on a computer, you can use your cursor and hit next. Then you just do this affidavit saying that you're not lying about any of your information, that you are qualified to vote. Sign, say you're not a robot, do the little captcha thing, and hit submit. And then you should be good to go. A couple weeks after that, you can go in and check your registration. It's going to take them a little bit to process it. I'll show you how to check your registration in the next step. Don't go and try and check your registration right after you submit this, because it's bureaucracy. It takes a little while for them to update the system. But if you want to double check it in a couple weeks after you submit it, I'll show you how to do that. If you would rather register by mail, just fill out the form and mail it. We have those paper copies of the forms at SMART. We have them available at all our outreach tables. These are all the times that we do outreach that you can come by and get a application to register. Wednesday, 9:15 to 11 at the building at the East Harlem Health Action Center, or same period of time at the Silverman School of Social Work, which is on 118th and 3rd Avenue. And then Saturday from noon to 2, we are at the building again, the East Harlem Neighborhood Health Action Center. Do this sooner rather than later, because remember, your registration has to get to the Board of Elections by October 26th in order for you to be eligible to vote in this election. And once you register, you're good to go. You don't have to do this every year. You're set until you need to change your address or something like that, but you stay registered. So that's good. How to check your registration. So for those of us who are already registered, or for someone who has done the registration steps and then wants to just make sure that it all went through, you're going to go to the same webpage, but there's a little box on the side that says, are you registered? Check online. And you see there's a phone number you can call if you'd rather do that. I'm going to show you how to do this the online way. So you're just going to click on that button. This is actually going to take you to the New York State Board of Elections, because the registry system is actually in the state, the city and the state talking to each other. You're going to enter your information here. Remember, the county for Manhattan is New York. Last name, first name, date of birth, zip code. And then you're going to hit search, and your information should come up here. If it doesn't, it's worth contacting the Board of Elections directly just to say, I'm pretty sure I was registered before. What's the deal now? You may have to re-register if something happened, but chances are, if you have registered in the past, everything will pop up here. You see name and address, all of this. You can click on the County Board of Elections to find your early voting poll site. So if you plan on early voting, you can find where that site is. And then you can click find my poll site here. This link, it'll be in that window, and they can tell you what your election day poll site is. So double check that too, even if you voted a lot in the past. That is apt to change sometimes without much fanfare. So just make sure you know before the day that you plan on going and voting. Now we're going to talk about how to request a mail or an absentee ballot. If you have applied for an absentee ballot in the past and you've stated that the reason that you got this absentee ballot is because you have a permanent illness or physical disability, they are required to keep sending you absentee ballots each time there's an election. It's worth double checking on that. If you don't know if that's how you identified before, you can always call the Board of Elections and check on that. I think too, it'd be fine to just go ahead and re-request one. I don't think that's going to mess anything up. Like if they were going to send you one anyway, they'll send it to you maybe twice, and that's fine. Just only fill out one, right? If you have stated that you had a permanent disability or physical illness, then you should get them automatically. Everyone else needs to apply for each election, and they'll give you the option when you apply, like at the beginning of a year, do you want like the primary one and then the other one, the follow-up one? You can do it for a year in advance. But for this one, you're going to need to just go in right now. If you haven't gotten absentee ballots and you haven't requested them, you need to go in and do that now. All right. The very last day to do that is October 26th. Again, you don't want to go up against that deadline. So just do it sooner rather than later. And I'll show you how. Okay. So you're going to go to a different website. This one is related, but it's requestballot.vote.nyc. And I wanted to point out this other thing that is kind of cool is that a new thing in 2024 is that any New York State resident can request an early mail ballot application. And what that is, it's basically vote by mail. Right? You don't have to have a disability for that. You don't have to have any stated reason why you want to do that. You can just request that early mail ballot application. And it doesn't seem to be in substance any different than an absentee ballot, except that when you apply for an absentee ballot, they ask you why you want it, right? They ask you, do you have a physical disability? Will you be out of the country? So there doesn't seem to be much difference between those two. But if you are applying for it for a reason that has to do with mobility or traveling or something like that, go ahead and get an absentee ballot. If you just want to vote early by mail, you can do this and do the early mail ballot application. It's very similar. Okay, so this is the information they're going to ask you for both of those, the early mail or the absentee ballot. So same thing, personal information, borough, zip code, all that. Then you're going to confirm your information is correct. So above what you see on the screen, it'll have your name and address. It'll basically confirm that you're registered. So this is the questions for the absentee ballot. They're basically the same for the early mail ballot, except for this one about why you're asking for it. So again, you're going to be absent from the city. You have duties. Again, if you put permanent illness or physical disability, you should get these automatically in the future. And then you can say for any election held between these dates, it's always good though to follow up to just make sure you're getting one. For right now, this time it's just going to be the general election this year. That's what's left in the year. And then you can say mail it to my residential address, mail it to me at a different address, deliver to me in person at the Board of Elections. So that would mean you'd have to go to the Board of Elections and get it. Generally, you're just going to get this mailed to whatever address is the right one for you. And then you confirm that all these things are true, say you're not a robot, and then click submit. And you should get your early mail ballot or absentee ballot relatively quickly thereafter. And some dates to remember with that: for this year's election, which is on November 5th, the last date to request a mail or absentee ballot is October 26th. You need to make sure that that ballot is postmarked by November 5th. You can drop it off at the Board of Elections or at your election day voting site or your early voting site up until November 5th. And note too that you don't need postage to mail these. They are already postage paid. They have the little sticky thing, so you fill them out, stick them on, and then you can just drop them in the mail. Those are all the technical things, but this is the sort of overarching reminder about why we're even talking about this. I think it's important to remember that your vote is very powerful. One of the things that we do at SMART is make sure that you have the tools to make sure that your voice is heard. We want to do that as far as this election goes too. Your vote is private. So whether you're voting by mail, whether you're voting by absentee ballot, or you're going into the booth and filling your form out, nobody knows what you vote for except you. That is your right and your decision. So people can ask you, but that is up to you. It's not your friends, it's not your family, it's your vote. And then I wanted to say too, I know we've talked about misinformation, disinformation, media literacy in the past. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation going around about this election. And I want you to be really careful about not only what you read and believe, but also what you share, because people have a real vested interest in making you believe things that may not be true and that could influence the way that you vote. So one thing I'll say is if you see something somewhere that seems inflammatory or it makes you afraid or upset and it's about something having to do with the election, check in mainstream media and see if anybody in the mainstream media is covering it. If they're not, it is almost positive that that thing is not true. And I know the mainstream media is not perfect, but it does require a lot more checks and balances than some person posting on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or anything like that. So be smart, be discriminating about where you get your news from, listen to the candidates themselves, and then make your decision based on that kind of information, not things that are playing on your fears and trying to sort of steer you in another direction. And I wanted to share these voting stickers too. The Halloween one was a special edition Halloween one from a couple of years ago from the New York City Board of Elections. This is one of the standard ones. And these two are ones that kids designed that won a contest in Michigan for the voting sticker that you get after you vote. I love the voting stickers that you get after you vote. It's like a bull tearing his clothes up. I think it's a good visual depiction of your vote being powerful. And then I voted yay. So the stickers are just sort of like a fun way to encourage people to vote, to really exercise this right that you have. And so we really hope that you do, and we will do whatever we can to make sure that you are registered and you have all the tools you need to make that decision. These are all contact methods for the Board of Education. If you're in New York City, you can just do 212 Vote NYC. One more thing I wanted to mention too is a lot of the talk about the election has obviously in presidential elections that gets a lot of attention. There's a lot of other things on the ballot this time too. We're voting for a ballot initiative. We're voting for senator, our representative, our congressional representative, and a whole bunch of state offices depending on what your location is. So there's a lot at stake in a lot of different elections here.